Thanks for being here. Subscribe to Cheating Stories Best, so you don't miss new stories.
She exclaimed. You think I am going to drag my parents into this mental delusion of yours, this dirty little affair? I knew she had pulled them in for sure. In fact, I was sure that even now he or she had the recordings and would return them in the future if I wanted to prove anything. I was simply hopeless. I leaned back. So, you think you have something that incriminates me? Let us say you have it. What are you going to do about it? At that moment, the Leslie I really knew took over again. That passionate, sensual woman. First Leslie reached over and pulled the flash drive from the laptop. She threw it on the floor and crushed it under her heel. I felt that there was more to come. I was right. Leslie leaned back as she sat down. She took her hands and let the straps of her dress fall down her shoulders. I was quite sure that she was not wearing a bra under the dress. Now I was certain. I watched as the dress slid down past her waist. She was not wearing any underwear or socks. The socks were thigh-high, probably held up with some kind of adhesive. My wife stood in front of me wearing nothing except the thigh-high socks and heels. She smiled at me with a mixture of intimacy and provocation, half laughing in a way that reminded me of a woman who was confident and playful. She stammered, "What will I do with you?" She leaned over and pulled me to my feet. She gave me one of those sly, teasing half-laughs I had seen many times before and whispered, "Mommy is hot, Francis. She is on fire and needs to be cooled down." The scene was unfolding, and I felt doomed. Literally going to have an intimate moment if everything went according to plan. These were the games we always played. By the time the game ended, we were both so tired that we could barely move. Leslie stayed home and rested in bed the next day. I went to work, but I felt so sick that I could barely walk. This was the usual state of affairs. Sorry, that was not the case. In February, right before Valentine's Day, Leslie went to stay with her mother and remained there for the entire Lent. Her mother called me and told me that Leslie was at home and feeling depressed. Mrs. Wells told me how she and Leslie spent a lot of time together at church. Mrs. Wells was an elderly woman, and her religious studies had become the center of many of Leslie's concerns. She explained how Leslie felt sad about many of her past mistakes. Mrs. Wells and Leslie spent a lot of time in prayer. I believed Mrs. Wells. She never gave me a reason to doubt her. Mr. Wells was another matter. I always felt like he looked down on me, as if I were not good enough for his daughter. No one could blame him for that. Who was I? Who was she? In late February and March, I was so lonely that I almost gave in. In fact, at one point, things were so bad that I decided to go to Baltimore and beg Leslie to come home. I went to Baltimore. What I saw changed everything. I arrived in Baltimore the Sunday before Palm Sunday. I had a dozen roses and a box of chocolates. I even had a chocolate bunny and a coconut Easter egg. Everything was planned. I had to see her. We would talk. I would pretend I did not see anything. I would ask her to forgive me. I was so desperate. I turned down her parents' street and parked my Jeep. I started to get out when I saw it. A black Lexus with Virginia plates. I had just had lunch at a nice restaurant, and my stomach began to clench. I leaned over the side and left the lasagna, salad, and garlic bread on the side of the road. I slowly drove my Jeep back down the narrow street. I admit, I cried. I pulled back, but not before taking a good photo of the Lexus. I drove off, got out of the area, got on the freeway, and found a nice motel. I threw myself on the bed and cried almost all night. The trips to Martinsburg were real. Leslie's decision to return home was not out of desperation or guilt. She wanted to continue what she was doing with the man in the black Lexus in an environment free from possible detection. Obviously, she had her parents' favor. Yes, she outsmarted the stupid guy from Western Maryland. What did he know? Well, I knew a lot. I knew people working in the government. I had friends in the state police. I was not rich. I was not well connected. But I was not completely without resources. First, I called my father. He worked on the railroad. He also had friends. He contacted an old friend who was a good friend of our state senator. I knew this man too, just not as well. In the meantime, I went back to working on what to do about my wife. I drove back to her parents' neighborhood. The place was a tangled pattern of narrow streets. It was easy to find a parking spot, get out, and walk around without attracting attention. It did not take long. The following Wednesday, the Lexus pulled up and a man got out. It was him, tall, well-built, the same man I had seen before. He came and rang the doorbell. I saw Leslie walk out the door. She kissed him on the cheek. He took her hand and walked her to the car. She was wearing a light suede coat that I had never seen before. She looked good. She laughed and smiled. She was happy. I took some photos. I had everything I needed. So Leslie and I sat on our couch. She and I were almost completely without clothing, and she was ready for a lively evening. I kissed her one last time. "Honey, can you wait just a second?" I asked with a smile. "I need to do something quickly." I stood up, slid down the stairs, and rushed to our former bedroom. I found a white envelope containing the photos I had downloaded. Returning to the living room, I sat back down and dropped the envelope into her lap. She took it and held it, looking at me. "What is this?" she asked. "A gift. Open it." She opened the envelope. There were only 3 photos. One showed the Lexus, apparently parked in front of her parents' house. Another showed her walking towards his car. The last one showed her giving him a small kiss. Leslie did not say anything. She put the photos back into the envelope and turned to me. "I knew that look." "I do not believe it anymore," she said. "I can explain," she added quickly. I interrupted her. "His name is Richard Weatherby. You knew him before you met me. You just stopped dating him before moving to West Virginia. In fact, I suspect you moved to get away because he ended his relationship with you." Leslie looked dumbfounded. No, she looked guilty. She had the expression of someone who knew she was caught and could not escape. I continued. "When you were in college, he was too. You two dated off and on throughout college. He attended Wake Forest and later got a job as an insurance salesman. I was told his first wife was the daughter of one of the partners. This marriage lasted several years. They divorced, and he remarried, but his second marriage ended in September last year." I plucked up my courage. "When did you start acting differently?" Leslie hesitated. "Was it shortly after Thanksgiving, I think? As much time has passed as it took him to find you," I said. "So, how is it since Thanksgiving?" "This seems logical to me," I added. "Richard and Victoria think so too." "Leslie," I asked, "why is my son's name Richard? Why was he not named after me?" "It was your idea. Do you remember?" she said. "You know what happened when our son, my son, found out about this?" He almost broke down. "He and I did a DNA test. He is my son." "Leslie, were you still seeing Weatherby after we got married? You named him Richard because you thought maybe. Well, you were wrong." All her intimacy disappeared. "No, Francis, this is not." I interrupted. "It does not matter." I stood up and went to her coat and purse, which were hanging nearby. "You better get dressed, Leslie. I need to go to my parents. They are all waiting for me. We are going out for dinner, my mom and dad, my son, and my daughter." She got dressed. "I am sorry, Francis. Cannot we survive this? I love you." I was heartbroken. I really loved her. "I love you too, Leslie, but no, we cannot. You need to leave now." I handed her my coat and purse, which I had never seen her carry before that day. She took the clothes. "Francis, I am sorry." "I know. I am sorry too. Go home, Francis. Your mom and dad love you. They will take care of you. They will understand. They never approved of me anyway. Go find Richard Weatherby. Try." She walked to the door. "What about you? My children? What should I do?" I smiled. "It is okay, Leslie. Wait a few weeks before calling your kids. They will forgive you. They will survive this. What about me? I will be fine. I will find someone." She became gloomy and started to say something, but I stopped her. "Not Venica. She was never more than a friend. But someone will find it. I am only 45. People know me." Leslie burst into tears. These were real tears this time. No tricks, no intimate innuendos. I felt sorry for her. I thought she was happy. I believed that she had a happy life, a happy home. She gave up everything. Through her tears, she muttered, "Oh, could it be me? I will be good for you." I just shook my head. "No." I watched as she slowly walked down to her Avalon. She looked back twice. Her shoulders were bent, and she was crying. She got into the car and drove away. I cried a little after she left, but I got through it. I needed to move on. I went inside, put my clothes back on, came out, and got into my Jeep. I had 2 children to take care of. I needed to move on with my life. Leslie's final departure occurred in April. The children admitted that they rigged the camera that filmed me with Venica. I think they really wanted things to go back to the way they were before. They even left the camera on after I showed them pictures of their mother with Weatherby. Hope dies last, as they say. I think I let her hold out a little longer than I should have. When she came back with a disc containing recordings of me and Venica, I already had evidence against her. I guess I was just trying to get revenge. I wanted to see what other tricks she would try. She was very good at it, and played her game to the end like a professional. What Leslie never understood, and what no one else realized, was how my second discovery affected me. The first winter awakening, as I drove around Martinsburg, bought gadgets at Radio Shack, argued with clerks at motels, and followed a black Lexus through West Virginia, had an almost surreal quality. It allowed me to perceive what was happening as if it were some kind of dream. But standing on the sidewalk on the same street where Leslie's parents lived, watching him drive up to their house, receive a kiss on the cheek, and see her joyfully running toward his car, it was like a knife stabbing into my chest, which then simply broke my heart. This second observation, the whole scene in front of her parents' house in Baltimore itself, just a few blocks from where we were married, in the bright light of a spring day, brought everything into painful clarity. Leslie really left me. I saw the entire spectacle, the pretense and denial going on in Oakland, for what it really was, a pathetic sham, a cynical play by a wealthy city girl with a gullible husband, so she could continue dating and enjoying life with her ex-boyfriend. All the questions and insecurities that I had never mentioned came to the surface. Was I really that inadequate? Was our life together so unbearable for her? Were my children even mine? Had she seen him and others over all these years? Were her visits to her parents a deception, an attempt to escape to the life she truly preferred? Was I that stupid, so blind, so naive? I stopped trusting myself. I began to doubt my worth as a father, as a husband, as a man. Leslie destroyed me. Richard was in his final year of school and was due to graduate at the end of May. When the time came, we sent his mother a card and a ticket. She arrived, but since the seats were not reserved, she had to sit in another part of the hall. After the ceremony, she found us. She was dressed very nicely in a beige suit and extremely low-heeled shoes. I thought she looked lovely, a little subdued but still lovely. We were all polite, but the atmosphere was very tense. No one asked what she did, and she did not say anything. Leslie was invited to Richard's graduation party at my parents' house, but she refused. That was the last time I saw her. The children hear from her from time to time. They say she is dating someone, but there is no one in particular. They say they are afraid she is going too far. I do not even know what that means. Previously, I would have rushed to her aid without hesitation. Right now, I just do not know. All I know is that Weatherby went back to Richmond alone. He was nobody. If it were not for him, it would have been someone else or something else. Leslie I do not know. Now it does not matter anymore. Do I hate her? I want to. I want to blame her for what she did, but it is not easy. I know her parents never approved of me. They never really accepted me. I tried to involve her mom and dad in everything we did. I wish I could say the same about them. I remember how I once took her father hunting. We went kayaking once, and I know exactly what he liked. Her father and his friends hunted on the East Coast. He had a boat. He never invited me to hunt, and I never set foot on his boat. I know he invited Leslie's exes, but not me. I know they talked to her often. I think they broke her. It is no excuse, but they could have. I miss her terribly. I did not take a single photo. I can still smell her perfume. I went to a lawyer and drew up documents, but did not submit anything. Would I take her back if she came back? I just do not know what I would do. It is very hard to let go. Not much time passed, just a few months. The anniversary of her leaving is coming up. Friends say, but I just wish. Why was it my fault? Was there something I could do? Was there anything I could have done differently? She never said. I know one thing. In these situations, it is sad that no one wins. I just feel terrible. Dad, Richard began. We know you still love her, Victoria said, and I just want you to give this a little more time. Son, I have already given it almost 7 months. I am not filing any legal separation. I am just going to move out of the cabin and donate all of Leslie's clothes to charity. Victoria took her father's hand. We know it was hard for you. We know you think you need to move on, but just give it a little more time. We constantly communicate with my mother. She is really suffering. So I did not suffer. Look, like I said, I am not serving anything. I found myself a home. I am tired, Victoria. Tired of waking up in our bed. Tired of washing our dishes. Tired of chopping wood. Tired of freezing all winter. I feel like I am living in a mausoleum. I want to break free. I just want something different. Richard asked, have you chosen a place? The old Hamilton house near Red House. Victoria snorted. This old house. He is not that old. This is a cozy little bungalow on a quiet street in the forest. It has oil heating, and with the money I have, I can afford a decent down payment. Besides, look at our situation. Richard, you are in Frostburg, and Victoria, you are in your senior year. My mom and dad said you could stay with them until you graduate. What about the dogs? Asked Richard. I will take them with me, plus your mom's car. Avalon will be taken off my insurance, and I am removing it from my health plan. I am also selling one of the cars. Richard reproached him. That is cruel, Dad. Listen, son, she is gone. She will not come back. And even if she did, I am not sure I would want that. Early October, Baltimore, Maryland. I do not think that is a good idea, Leslie's mom said. Leslie said, Mom, I love you and Dad, but I made a decision. Oakland is my home. My children are there. My husband is there. My heart, my home, is there. Leslie's father looked at her in disbelief. He said, He does not want you. Your children hate you. There is nothing there for you. Leslie tried to object to her father, although she herself was far from sure of her words. No, Father, you are wrong. First, Francis did not file for divorce. If he really wanted to get rid of me, he would have done it months ago. The kids do not hate me. We correspond. They are angry. They are disappointed, but they do not hate me. They tell me about Francis. I know he is lonely. He is not dating anyone. He is just playing with the dogs. Leslie's father objected. What about Mr. Weatherby? What about Richard? We thought you were with him. Interrupting her father, Leslie replied, No, Father, you are mistaken. Yes, Richard and I dated, but it is not about us in a romantic sense. He wants to return to Richmond. I want to try to start again. Go back to your old life. Leslie's mother objected. He told me something different. He said he loves you. He loved you back in college. Do not send him back. You should forget your ranger, get a divorce, and move on. Leslie thought about her mother's words. Richard left her in college, not the other way around. The mother apparently forgot, or Richard gave her the wrong information. Despite this, Leslie was determined. Mom, I am over 40. I made a mistake. I am sorry Richard came to Oakland in the first place. I need to go home. I need my family. I want my husband back. Leslie's father warned, He does not want you. He will make a fool of you. Leslie held her position firmly. Father, I have already exposed myself to ridicule. I ruined the best part of my life. I do not know if he will accept me. Most likely not. But it is important for me to come home to Oakland. I want to be where he is. I need to see him. I need to be near him. Her father warned, You are preparing for another heartbreak. It will destroy you. Leslie replied, I am already destroyed, Father. Mother asked, What will you do? Where will you live? The father interrupted, Do not count on us. Not a single red cent. Leslie was not surprised. Her parents had never helped her and Francis. Not once in all these years, despite the fact that she was their only child. She reached out and took her father's hand. I know, Father, everything is fine. I have already decided everything and found where to stay. I understand that I will not have money, but there is worse poverty, poverty of the heart. I am sorry, Father. I cannot live like this anymore. If I cannot try to be happy again, then at least I want to be close to this happiness. Leslie's father shook his head, looking at her incredulously. Well, good luck, he said. The mother added sarcastically, You will be back. Carefully, so as not to ruin her mother's makeup, Leslie symbolically kissed her in the air on her cheek. Then she extended her hand to her father. He shook her hand, and she finally said, Let us see. The next morning, I left my childhood home. I decided to take old Route 40 west from Baltimore through Frederick, Hagerstown, Indian Springs, Hancock, Cumberland, past Frostburg, Grantsville to Kaiser's Ridge, and then down Route 219 to Oakland, home. I thought to myself, this is exactly how Francis and I drove right after the wedding. We then loaded up some of my things that I had not had time to transport before. Then we took a truck and drove to Oakland. In the depths of my consciousness, in the farthest corners of my memory, something reminded me again and again that despite all I had seen and experienced in my childhood and youth, a simple trip to the West had always remained my greatest adventure. I drove north on Charles Street, then onto the Beltway, and then onto Route 40. I remembered how my parents did not approve of Francis. They did not approve of our marriage. They never said it outright, but I knew that they believed I had married someone below my status. Oh, they were nice to him, but the trust fund money never came. They excluded me from their insurance. They put $2,000 into my savings account, and that was it. Francis and I had a big Catholic wedding, just like my parents wanted. We had Massachusetts. I laid flowers at the altar for the Virgin Mary. We did everything that needed to be done. If I had married someone they approved of, I knew they would have paid for our honeymoon in Europe. But Francis was not good enough for Europe, and we only got a gift card and some cash for a weekend in Niagara Falls. The trip was not too long, so I decided to do it in one day. There was nothing to think about. I was going until Frederick. West of Frederick was a junction with the Appalachian Trail. Francis, my friends, and I hiked this trail the summer after our wedding. The trail was quite crowded back then, but we did not care. We had a small tent, and it was easy for me to forget about the rocks when I was with my husband. Francis was a kind man, and I needed that. By the time we went camping, I had already had a night experience. We were already married, but before that, I had only been with two men. One was right when I started college. The other was Richard Weatherby at the end of college. I shuddered. I had given myself to Richard before graduation, even. In that small tent, Francis was a much more caring and attentive lover. That trek through the Appalachians was full of golden moments. Francis was more than just a forester. He had a second specialty, archaeology. He knew everything about the Appalachian Mountains. He told me that the mountains we see now are not mountains themselves, but residual valleys between ancient peaks, which he called Old Appalachia. Francis was a true intellectual. He studied this topic inside and out. He explained that the entire Appalachian mountain range was once a giant geosyncline. It was a vast interior sea that rose and became mountains once as tall as the Himalayas. But over time, they completely collapsed. I asked him where all this destroyed material went. He responded that the entire eastern coastal shelf of the United States consists of this material, especially the land east of the Piedmont Plateau. On the west side, it formed the fertile soils of the Ohio River Valley. As I drove past Ittick Heights, said to be the site where a British general was buried after his disastrous invasion of the Ohio country in 1754, I thought of my school days. I was a good student. I was popular among my classmates and was well liked by the boys who attended the nearby boys' academy. I remembered that throughout school, I followed my father's advice and carefully preserved my innocence. Why did I give it up as soon as I became an adult? I became an adult and was free to make my own decisions. At that time, most of my friends were already quite active in intimate relationships. My first time was not at all what they said. First of all, I did not even really like the guy. He was an athlete and seemed to have experience, but after all the confusion and uncertainty, I already doubted it. I was so disappointed that I decided not to repeat such experiences again. It was only much later, with Richard, that I decided to try again. My mother and father have always been difficult for me to understand. I believed that they loved each other. I believed that they loved me. But they were so reserved. Never any emotion, no enthusiasm. Although this is not entirely true. My father was an energetic man, a dedicated businessman, a tireless philanthropist, and an avid golfer. My mother was a deeply devout Catholic who could always be relied upon to lead a charity campaign or chair a committee. She was a tour guide at Walter's Art Gallery almost full-time. She dedicated herself to increasing the number of valuable titles in the Pratt Library. Yes, my parents have always been involved in wonderful things. They provided for me very well. I always had a nanny. I went to the best private day schools, and when it came time for high school, they found me the best private boarding school. I spent the summers in different camps and traveled with numerous excursion groups. My friends, their parents, and I walked along the Great Wall of China, took cruises on the Nile, and visited all the great museums of Europe. My favorite European city after Paris was Florence. I had the best and most expensive clothes, the brightest cars. I was missing nothing. My mother attended a prestigious private college near Baltimore. I surprised her by getting into the same college. I joined the same sisterhood and gained the same reputation as a woman dedicated to helping others. I studied hard, and my grades were always good. By my senior year, I had progressed enough that I could spend most of my time helping others. There was a small children's hospital in North Baltimore. Children from all over the world with a variety of diseases came there for treatment. It was there, during my senior year of college, that I experienced something like a meeting on the mountaintop, or more accurately, a descent into the abyss of despair. There was a terrible fire in Guatemala City. Hundreds of people died. Dozens suffered severe burns. 18 of these poor fire victims were brought to this children's hospital. None of them were predicted to survive. I began my so-called ministry career at this hospital just before Christmas, just as these patients arrived. Imagine visiting the hospital 3 to 4 times a week, trying to give all the care and attention you can imagine, watching these poor people die one by one. I was depressed. During my last year of college, I met Richard Weatherby. He was very tall, very blonde, very athletic, and incredibly handsome, the most handsome and charming man I had ever met. We started dating slowly. He had another girlfriend, and I could not take him seriously as long as he kept talking to her. I was lucky to have him by my side when I visited the children's hospital. Richard supported me every time one of the little patients passed away. He was there. He was so warm, so sensitive, so compassionate. He held my hand and listened to me speak. He stroked my head and gently touched my cheek. When I was outraged by the injustice of God, he held me while I cried and poured out my soul. I think I am in love. He broke up with his girlfriend, and we became a couple. With him, I learned what true love and true passion are. He taught me how to give pleasure. Together, we explored all the secrets of intimate love. I loved Richard so much. I thought he was going to propose to me, but this did not happen. One evening in May, shortly before graduation, he took me to New York with him. We stayed in a great hotel, saw a great show, and had dinner in a great restaurant. Late on our last day, he broke my heart. He said he was talking to his ex-girlfriend and wanted to get back with her. I cried. I begged him not to leave me, but he was adamant. He said that she needed him and it was his duty to marry her. Shortly after Richard left, I decided to become a teacher. I received the appropriate qualifications and decided to find a place that was as different as possible from my past experience. That is how I ended up in Western Maryland and met the man I married. At first, I was very doubtful about Francis. He was so different, so confident, so self-sufficient, the wittiest and most intelligent young man I had ever met. He was always surrounded by friends. When he appeared, the room seemed to be filled with light. He had a dazzling smile, and when he spoke, it was never something banal or empty. He always found interesting topics to talk about. To be honest, most of the time we talked about me. He acted as if I was the most important and interesting person in the world. When he was around, I felt like the center of the universe. Although he rarely flattered me, I think I am in love. No, I fell in love with Francis without looking back. He was an only child, like me, but his parents were very different from mine. When he introduced us, they immediately accepted me into the family. They wanted to know everything about me and be involved in everything we did. Soon, I felt more like a daughter than just another girl. I also learned that Francis was extremely popular. It seemed like every girl in the area was in love with him, and I understood why. He was kind to everyone. I never heard him say a bad word about anyone. If he did not like someone, he simply remained silent. I think his big dog contributed to this, a huge, ugly brown dog with long ears and a wrinkled muzzle. This dog adored Francis. I had never really interacted with animals. As a child, I was not allowed to have dogs, and I was even afraid of them. But how wrong I was. This dog fell in love with me. It even seemed to me that after a few days, he loved me more than Francis. It is funny how one dog can make you love all animals. Of course, I knew how to ride horses, but they were always other people's horses. I dreamed of having my own, but my father was too practical. He said horses were a waste and called them glue on the hooves. In his opinion, it was more economical to rent a horse or ride someone else's. But let us forget about my father. With Francis and that old dog, I quickly found myself cuddling kittens, playing with puppies, feeding horses carrots and sugar, chasing calves, watching bears, and learning to hunt wild turkeys. Francis was an excellent teacher and a natural expert on animals. I realized that Francis was a true Renaissance man. He seemed to be competent in everything. As I drove into Cumberland, I remembered how we met. I went to the Apple Festival with a couple of teacher friends. I had just gotten a job as an English teacher at one of the local schools. The kids were quite nice. That was amazing too. I studied in private schools and colleges. My parents and most of their friends had little to no contact with ordinary people. I remember how my parents treated their employees more like interchangeable machine parts than people. I was the same. Yes, we were polite and kind, but if any of the employees had problems that required real help, we usually just fired them. We had a spotless house and a perfect lawn, but all the workers were illegal immigrants. It was both funny and sad. My father condemned the invasion of illegal migrants, but he himself always preferred them to citizens. We were rich, and I think we thought public school people were lazy and dumb. I realized that this is not at all true. The students I taught, and even those whom older teachers called mediocre or weak, refuted all my stereotypes. They were wrong. From the first day, I realized that the children were simply wonderful. I remember confidently communicating my rules and regulations, demanding that they follow my every instruction. Then one boy raised his hand. I called him, and he politely reminded me that we needed to do a roll call first and probably get everyone in their seats. I was completely green. I grabbed the first list I came across and started reading I read the names, but not a single child from this list was in the class. Only when I finished did one girl in the front row rummage through my documents and hand me the correct list. I was so embarrassed, but no one even laughed. If this had happened in any of the schools I attended, the poor teacher would have been ridiculed without mercy. So, we went to the Apple Festival. It was autumn, and I should have been more careful. I was sipping a soda from a can when a wasp flew into it. I did not notice this. I tilted the can towards my lips, and the insect stung me right on the lip. It hurt a lot. Then, out of nowhere, my savior appeared. It was Francis. I understood right away. I just knew this guy was special. I played hard to get for a couple of weeks, but honestly, everything was resolved quickly. He conquered me. I was completely at his mercy. He could have taken me at any moment, but he was in no hurry. He was waiting for the right time. Then, one evening, when he finally approached me, I was ready. Oh yes, I was ready. He had a vinyl-covered pickup truck. In the back were thick blankets, pillows, and an air mattress. There was a bucket with a bottle of wine on ice. The weather was cool, but not cold. Evening had already come, and the sun had set. We climbed into the back of the pickup truck. He closed the back and rolled down the window to keep us safe and comfortable. I was wearing a plaid shirt, tight jeans, and sneakers. A week later, at his parents' house, a week before Christmas, he proposed to me. We had just finished eating fried chicken. He, his father, and his mother were talking about the weather when he quietly slid a small box across the table toward me. He, his mom, and dad fell silent and stared at me. I knew what was in the box. I opened it. Inside, there was a ring with a small stone, a quarter carat, but I did not care. It could have even been the blue diamond of hope. The next week, we went to my parents. Anyone would have thought I had malaria or something. They were stunned, but in a bad way. They had that look when you realize, damn, not this. I saw it. Francis saw it too, but it did not matter. I had the one I wanted. We got married in June. I chuckled as I drove through Cumberland. Thanks to my own mistakes, my life could have been a disaster, but despite everything, I was allowed to remember how deliriously happy I once was. I made it to the top of the hill outside of Cumberland. There was a discount store on the left and a tire store on the right. My stomach dropped, and I felt another wave of awareness wash over me. I once had everything my heart desired, but instead of enjoying it, I was consumed by emptiness, by things I could not even remember now. I had become narcissistic and selfish. Most of my friends and almost my entire family were shocked by my choice. And here I am, Leslie Marie Wells, married to a mountain man who grew up just 7 miles from the real Mountain Man factory in West Virginia. My family was not pretentious. My middle name, Marie, was common in our family. Henrietta Maria was the wife and queen of James. Maryland was originally named Terra Maria in her honor. Incredible. The Queen of Debtors is married to a rough, simple-minded hillbilly farmer and forester who wears a Smokey Bear hat and nurses unwanted bobcats. When I finally passed Cumberland, I was nearly brought to a halt by bitter tears as I remembered my only big bachelorette party. A couple of my real friends decided to play a joke on me and my strict mother. One found all the episodes of the old show Hee Haw on the internet. This was her only gift. Another, again as a joke, gave me a banjo. They were surprised when I said that Francis actually played the banjo. I did not even mention that he also plays the violin and piano. He called it a violin. Other special gifts included a Dolly Parton-themed wig and a straw hat with a price tag that I was reminded was in memory of Minnie Pearl. The Dolly Parton-style wig was a gift from my Aunt Annie. She only did it to prick my mother. Of all my relatives, only Aunt Annie saw the absurdity of the situation and understood that I was truly in love. My Aunt Annie was named after Lady and of Arundel, one of the wives of the Calvert family, lords of Baltimore. And Arundel County and Maryland's capital, Annapolis, were named in her honor. Aunt Annie has always been one of my most loyal friends and an absolute favorite among my relatives. She also sank in public opinion by marrying an auto mechanic. Once, she and I were at some kind of show in Seattle, or Portland in general. Somewhere there, the host was asking the audience where they were from. When he got to my aunt, she replied, "We are from Maryland. You know, this is the state that gave the hole on the PTOC where everyone is dumping their hard-earned tax dollars." This caused loud laughter in the hall. I loved Aunt Annie. She did not hold back at all when she got married, and neither did I. We both moved up in our marriages. Oh, why was I so stupid? I continued driving, lost in thought. What should I do now? I ruined my life. What could I say? I knew Francis. He would never. No, I had to continue on my way. I kept driving. In those early days, when we first got married, Francis loved everything I said and did. Remembering this, I understood that he loved everything about me. Absolutely everything. Right down to near Frostburg, I remembered our son Richard. I made a few mistakes with Richard. 2 mistakes, to be exact. I made them both. I never fully explained why I liked the name Richard when I first suggested it. I was young then, and now I wish I had been wiser. It had nothing to do with Richard Weatherby. Rather, it was the opposite. Francis and I had not been married long, maybe a little over a year. I did not know it then, but I was pregnant. We had little money, so our social life was very limited. We spent a lot of time at home, just watching TV or playing board games. We had cable, and we watched movies. One night, Francis and I made popcorn, opened a bottle of very inexpensive wine, and watched an old movie called The Cotton Club, starring Richard Gere and Diane Lane. Around that time, I tried to lighten my usually light brown hair, but the results were not what I expected. Francis said he liked it. I did not think about the fact that Diane Lane had her hair dyed for the role of Vera Cicero in the film. I just wanted to try something new. We watched the movie, kissed, hugged, and ate popcorn. I have always had a rich imagination. While watching this movie and kissing my handsome husband, it occurred to me how similar Richard Gere in the movie and my husband in real life were. Richard Gere's character in the film was slender and muscular, and both men had warm personalities, deep, almost dark, intelligence, and a charming way with women. I began to fantasize that I was Vera Cicero, Diane Lane's character, and my Francis was the mafia boss played by Richard Gere. One thing led to another, and soon I was watching Richard Gere movies every time they came on. I pretended that Richard Gere had his Diane Lanes, his Deborah Wingers, and his Julia Roberts, and I had my Richard Gere in the person of my Francis. When our first child was born, and it turned out to be a boy, it was easy for me to convince Francis to agree to name him Richard. Honestly, it never had anything to do with Richard Weatherby. I almost completely forgot about him. Years later, when I learned that the only other movie Richard Gere and Diane Lane had starred in together was about infidelity and called Unfaithful, my heart broke. If only I had known. What did I do? Why was I so foolish? I remembered I had made 2 mistakes regarding our son Richard, one about the name and the other about his and Victoria's college savings funds. The second mistake turned out to be a real disaster. Francis and I decided to put all our savings into 2 special accounts, one for Richard, one for Victoria. Over time, I watched with concern as college costs increased. Thanks to my parents, I never had to worry about paying for college, and because of Francis's high SAT scores, his parents' money, and state aid, college seemed like an easy step for our children. I noticed, with dismay, how our government and banks are using young students to squeeze money out of them through incredibly expensive and completely destructive student loans. I have read that college graduates have the highest levels of debt in the country. It seemed to me that something needed to be done. I was looking for a way out, and I noticed how the stock market, especially mutual funds, was posting record gains. I noticed the stock market was posting record returns. I called my father for advice. He sent me a short list of what he called high-yield and promising funds. He even marked with an asterisk those accounts that he considered the most preferable. I convinced Francis to put all our savings into 2 aggressive funds that my father recommended. We did this in the early winter of 2006 to 2007. The rest was history. Francis and I watched in horror as almost everything we owned simply disappeared. Heartbroken, I called my father. He almost laughed, and then he actually did laugh. He reminded me of what John Maynard Keynes once said, "Money in the stock market is like a man's lap. When a person sits, The knees are visible to everyone. But what happens when a person gets up? The knees disappear. All our money just disappeared. Our children's future was in jeopardy, and it was entirely my fault. Francis treated this with understanding and said that there was no need to worry, it was just money. My father also supported me. He invited me to return home, promising to help pay for my children's college education. He never loved Francis. He just did not understand him. I drove past Frostburg, where our son Richard studies. Then I drove through Grantsville until I got to Kaiser Ridge, where I turned off Route 40 onto Route 219. I would be home in a little while. When I turned south, I remembered the past. The first time I made this turn was in August when I started working. I had a new job, a new place to live, a new career. I was full of uncertainty. I knew nothing about the area, nothing about the people or their mores. Only that it was like West Virginia, and all that meant. Then there was a second time, me and Francis in the U-Haul truck. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was going home. I was driving toward my place, my home, my life, my future, and my own happily ever after. Now this was my third big turn south on Route 219. This time, I was returning to the ruins I had created. I knew I had to do this. I had no other choice. I knew where I belonged. My heart sank in pain. My hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. I felt terrible. I was a liar, a woman of easy virtue, a deceiver. The closer I got to Oakland, the more nervous I became. Everything in my stomach was twisting. My sewing box was in the back seat. That thing I called my sewing box was actually an old sewing box, but it did not have any needles or thread in it. My sewing box contained all my medicines. I promised myself that this time, when I got home, I would throw them all away. I am not an addict or anything out of the ordinary, but over the years, I have collected a few prescriptions that I have needed on occasion. This idea came to me from my mother. She also had her own sewing box once upon a time. My mother sometimes helped me cope with difficulties by giving me one of her little helpers. Mom said she needed medication because her father made her nervous. My mother had a doctor who prescribed her these medications. This is something that is now almost impossible to obtain. Mom has her own special source, her brother, a doctor and a respected surgeon. If he writes out a little for her, no one will say a word. When I was young and had problems, my mother would take out her little sewing box. She gave me half a tablet, and she took 2. We stayed at home. She put off her work in charitable organizations. We drank Diet Coke and watched soap operas together. When I went to college, I rarely drank alcohol. Alcohol reduces self-control and is easy to overuse, which can lead to poisoning and even death. College was stressful enough without alcohol. My mom was always there to help. One day, she found a remedy for me, but I did not like it. It made me feel sluggish and turned me into a zombie. I found one of the sedatives that worked for me and got used to keeping a few extra pills on hand. I quickly learned that it was best to pick up all my prescriptions as soon as possible because sometimes the pharmacist would tell me the prescription had expired. There is nothing worse than being left without the pills you need and not being able to get them. Sometimes I had to resort to the help of friends on campus. Later, of course, my uncle, my mother's brother, began to help me. I remember my senior year of college when I visited the children's hospital. Watching children die was difficult for me. It sounds selfish. I cannot deny that it was a challenge for parents who watched their children die. It was much more difficult for them. We prayed a lot together. People from Guatemala are almost all Catholic, so it was easy for me to communicate with them. It was hard to see children dying. I am glad I had my sewing box. Richard was very supportive during this time. He did more than just hold my hand and love me. The girl he dated before me had some medical problems and was using sedatives. Richard always had something for me before dates. He always made sure I accepted something. I vaguely remember how relaxing these pills were. Sometimes I took 2, and then I did not remember anything at all. He gave me more when he came to me after his wife left. I still have a large bottle left. It is not marked, so I cannot tell where it is from. I drove past Deep Creek Lake. When we were married and the children were still small, we often came there to fish, canoe, swim, and just have fun. Yes, I have been everywhere and done everything. I swam in the Aegean Sea, dived throughout the Bahamas archipelago, and surfed off the coast of Hawaii, not on the northern coast, of course. I camped in the Alps and in Colorado. But in all these places, I was the single friend or just the odd one out at the parties. At Deep Creek, I was at the center of everything. Mother, wife, daughter-in-law, No. Daughter, best friend. Oh, Deep Creek is a simple place. Nothing special there. But to me it was the most amazing lake in the most amazing place in the world. How could I not notice this? I had so many things. Weatherby wanted me to take those pills again after Francis sent me away. This was after Francis showed me photographs of me and Richard standing together in front of my parents' house. Thinking about it now, I have to admit that last year, between Thanksgiving and the start of Lent, I did some pretty sneaky things. I almost convinced Francis to deny it or at least pretend that he did not believe what he saw. I thought I had it all figured out. I would go back to my parents. I was sure that Francis would miss me so much that he would agree to anything. It almost happened. Those photos ruined everything. Those 3 terrible photos ruined everything. The worst thing was that I returned to my parents only to make Francis feel insecure. Why Richard ended up in Baltimore, I will never fully know. He was saying something. He talked a lot. He said he wanted me back, but I had already moved on. These photographs, what Francis saw when he arrived in Baltimore, may have looked incriminating, but they did not reflect reality. I also had a number of other pills. Back in high school, I had trouble getting up in the morning and would constantly fall asleep in class after lunch. Some doctors prescribed me some medicine. Oh, that was a real stimulant. I do not think I had any illness. I just stayed up too late, but my mom insisted it had to be something medical. I always had a supply of painkillers. Several years ago, Victoria and I had an accident. Some driver in an impaired state rammed us from the side. Victoria's legs were seriously injured. I hit the steering wheel and the side door hard. The doctors initially prescribed one painkiller, but Francis said it was addictive, so they changed it to another, although it is also addictive. They gave me nothing but nervousness. I still kept these pills. Sometimes I would take one or the other just to relieve stress. They helped smooth out the edges a little. Francis never blamed me for the accident, but he did mention once that if I had taken my medicine, I might have been a little more alert. I have never admitted it, but sometimes I think I might have dozed off a little while driving. The driver who crashed into us claimed that I ran the red light. Victoria did not notice anything. Then it was my word against his, and he had a criminal record. I do not think I caused all of my daughter's suffering. I hope not. Francis always said it was not my fault, and yet he mentioned the medicine. I wish I could be sure about this. It was not the case. I had just passed the sign for Oakland. My thoughts were racing at great speed. What went wrong? Why did I act the way I did? I think it all started after Victoria was born. I felt fat and out of shape. Previously, I had not paid attention to this, but now I noticed how other women, younger than me, although I was still young myself and more beautiful than them, tried in every possible way to attract Francis's attention. They were constantly spinning around him, touching his arms, hugging him, pressing against him, pushing their breasts forward. I think I started to get jealous, maybe even a little nervous, maybe a little insecure. That was probably when these handcuffs appeared. I saw handcuffs in a joke shop in La Vale. Above them was a small sign that said, "Keep her locked up." It gave me ideas. Hers, his. What was the difference? I was not into bondage, but I think I wanted to be in control. Yes, it definitely was that. I seemed to have subconsciously decided that I must keep my man under constant supervision. Now it seems stupid, but then there was a moment when he turned the situation around. He took control into his own hands. After that, we had wild nights. The toys quickly went out of fashion. If I wanted to keep Francis, I needed to use my body. I mean using my body fully. That was when a new chapter in our relationship began. A chapter that actually seemed to work. She made Francis and me happy. Until the economy began to deteriorate. Until Victoria's accident happened. Then came the operations, then the rehabilitation. Francis began to withdraw more into himself. Gloomy. He stopped paying attention to me. He began to work even more. Like all men, I think, when he faced problems, he responded by simply working harder. I felt abandoned. Abandoned? Well, maybe just a little. And of course, there were always young women around. How much younger than me, who attracted his attention. There were college girls. They revolved around him all the time. He received calls in the evenings from some college girls. I asked him what the conversation was about. He would answer something like, "Oh, nothing. Just a question about work," and then add, "That is not something you would be interested in." Why did he say that? I have always been interested in his work. Sometimes he returned home late. I asked where he was. He never lied. He said something like, "With this or that student." and always named names. It was always the girl who needed extra help. A couple of times it was some perky little blonde. I remember thinking, oh no, Veronica. I went to the mirror, and all I saw were wrinkles and folds. Wrinkles, folds, and the flabby body of a middle-aged, old, not very attractive woman. I realized that I would never be able to compete with these girls because that was all they were, just girls. And yet, I started buying new clothes, more beautiful clothes. I bought low-cut blouses, new push-up bras, a couple of pleated miniskirts, and even a busted dress. I even bought new underwear, even lacy ones. I tried styling my hair in different ways. Once, I even made a ponytail. I watched Francis look at the girls as their ponytails swayed from side to side. I remembered how I tried to look and act younger when Francis was home. He did not even notice. I was invisible. Francis seemed tired all the time. Francis showed no interest in me. He did not want to make love anymore. I was so afraid. I felt old. I knew it. I just knew. I think I started feeling especially miserable last fall. I was too focused on myself. It seemed to me that everything should be only about me. I took everything to the extreme. For Thanksgiving, I made my signature oyster casserole. Francis, Richard, Victoria, Dad, everyone raved about Mom's turkey. Turkey hunting season was the first week of November. Richard and Francis both got one shot. Mom cooked them her own way, and the meat had a distinctive wild flavor but was still delicious. She took the liver of wild birds, mixed it with purchased ones, and made her signature dish with a special sauce. I have to admit, with the stuffing, red cabbage, mashed potatoes, and succotash, it was quite a feast. But almost no one touched my oysters. Even Mom noticed this and tried to make sure everyone at least tried a spoonful of my tasty little casserole. I think I wore my feelings right on my sleeve. It was stupid. The next weekend, all the oysters were eaten, but that day at the table, I guess I was just feeling too sorry for myself. I know it sounds stupid, but the situation was not improved by the fact that I did everything I did, bought new clothes, changed my hairstyle, worked on my makeup more. Francis simply did not notice. And then, right after Thanksgiving, Richard Weatherby appeared. He was so... Oh, what was I thinking? It was like he stepped out of the pages of a magazine. Mr. Elegant had reappeared in my life. I cannot stop thinking about it. What did he say? How did he behave? But I will have to tell someone everything, will I not? Underscore. Red House, Maryland. Francis looked out the back window of the small bungalow he had recently bought. He was talking on the phone with his parents. Well, I did it, he said. The father replied, have you moved in? No, Francis said. I told the lawyer. They will deliver the documents to the court tomorrow morning. Today, he will send someone to find Leslie. After a few seconds of silence, the father asked, so you are finishing? I think it will be better this way, is it not? Victoria told your mother and me that Leslie was on her way back. Are you sure you do not want to at least listen to what she has to say? Francis thought for a moment and then replied, she can tell me after she receives the documents. His father replied, well, it is your decision. Francis replied, thank you, Dad, and turned off his mobile phone. Damn, he thought. She would do it. He picked up the phone again and called his lawyer. The secretary answered, hello, Mary Lou. Can you tell your boss that Leslie Campbell is probably back in Oakland? After a short pause, he added, I do not know. Perhaps she will return to our old house. Perhaps she rented a room somewhere. Let me give you the number of her car. It will not be difficult to find. He dictated the license plate number of Leslie's car and indicated a couple of people she would most likely want to see. She is back. I know what she wants, but I cannot do it. I just cannot. He buried his head in his hands and tried to push her out of his thoughts. He looked gloomily out the window. He could not. He just could not. Underscore. The same day, near Oakland. Finally home. It was almost 8 o'clock in the evening. It seemed there was no one at home. She got out of the car and walked onto the porch. The front door of the house. Everything was locked. She took out the key and inserted it into the lock. It worked. She opened the door. She went inside and looked around. It was dark. Leslie turned on the light. All the furniture was gone. "Oh no," she screamed. She ran upstairs. The bedrooms were also empty. She checked the cabinets. All her clothes were gone. She fell on the wooden floor. He had left. She burst into tears. After several minutes of grief and self-pity, Leslie rose to her feet. "I need to get myself together," she said. "Okay, I will go to Harriet first. I will find my apartment. I will get settled. I will ask her what she can tell me." Francis could not go far. He had a job, a career. The children were here. "I just spoke to Victoria. I wonder if she knows anything. Why did she not say anything?" Leslie took out her phone and called Harriet. Harriet answered on the first ring. "Hello, Leslie. You cannot come. Now, I will call you back later." She hung up. Leslie wondered what that could mean. She called again. Harriet answered once more. "Listen, Leslie, you should not come now. Something is going on here." Leslie heard someone talking in the background. Harriet spoke again. "Okay, you can come now. It does not matter anymore." Harriet Marman was her best friend. When Leslie lived in Oakland, Harriet's middle daughter, Elaine, and Leslie's son, Richard, were very close throughout their lives. Both women hoped their children could build something together. Things were not looking good right now, but Leslie was still hopeful. It was Harriet who found her an apartment and helped her get her part-time job back. A little after 9 o'clock, Leslie parked in Harriet's side lot. She noticed a new Subaru parked in front of the house and wondered who it might belong to. Getting out of the car, she went up to her friend's porch and knocked on the door. Harriet opened it. She looked terrible, as if she had been brought back from the dead. Behind her stood another woman, a young girl Leslie recognized. She was a girl who had graduated a year before her son Richard. Richard had asked her to his prom. Leslie remembered her. She was very sweet. The young girl stepped forward through the screen door. "I am very sorry, Mrs. Campbell. I am just doing my job." Leslie noticed tears appearing in the corners of the girl's eyes. The girl held out a thin manila paper folder. "This is technically not an official document." "Well, I mean it is official, but not as serious. It is just a separation agreement, not a formal divorce petition." By this point, the girl was already crying. "Please, Mrs. Campbell, I must say you have been served with documents, so I think you were handed the documents." The girl slipped between Leslie and the door, then quickly ran down the steps to her car. Almost automatically, she turned around, returned to the porch, and hugged Leslie. Sobbing and almost whispering, she said, "Please forgive me. Do not be angry with me." Leslie knew what was in the folder. In Maryland, most divorces did not begin with a permanent breakup. They usually began with what was called a separation agreement. The estranged couple was given a period of time during which they could try to make things right. There were documents in this folder that indicated this. It was devastating, but it could have been worse. Leslie hugged the young woman and gently stroked her long blonde hair. "Everything is fine. I understand. It is not your fault. Thank you." The girl looked up at Leslie. Leslie was a tall woman and the girl was short. The girl said, stuttering, "I am so sorry. I understand how you must feel. My dad, my mom. Oh, I am so sorry." She turned and ran away. Leslie remembered what she knew about the girl. Yes, her parents went through almost the same thing. Her father seemed to want a younger woman. Yes, Leslie remembered. Then she thought that the girl's father was a real scoundrel, leaving a good woman and destroying a happy family. Yes, he was a scoundrel. And she, Leslie, suppressed a sob and thought, "No, Francis will probably never take me back." Harriet was nearby. "Sorry, I tried to warn you. But Marianne, well, she is already late. She has classes tomorrow. She is a student at Garrett and has an early class. She studies wildlife technology. Francis is one of her teachers." "Oh," Leslie replied. She thought all these things seeped out. They hurt everyone. She wondered again and again, why was I so stupid? There can be no good excuse for what I did. "Harriet, can I spend the night with you?" Harriet took her hand. "Just for this night. Craig is gone now, but he will be back tomorrow. You are not his favorite person these days." Leslie sighed. "I am not my favorite person either. Have you seen or spoken to Francis?" Harriet flinched. At first, Harriet hesitated but then forced herself to smile. "Yes, I saw him. Do you want me to tell you?" Leslie nodded. "Let us go to the kitchen. I will make coffee and tell you everything I know. It is not that good, but it could be worse." They walked together to Harriet's large, cozy kitchen. Harriet had a fondness for chickens, so there were pictures and figurines of chickens and roosters everywhere. Leslie recalled, "Francis loved roosters. We had a little bantam rooster, He was harmful and aggressive. He attacked people. Francis treated this prankster like part of the family. For Francis, he was family. He even gave him a name. He called him Little Coxer. I must admit, despite his anger and aggressiveness, he was handsome. That rooster definitely loved Francis. He followed him everywhere in the yard. He lived for almost 7 years, an incredibly long time for such an animal. I remember one day Francis went out into the yard and found him. Apparently, he died during the night. Usually, when animals died, Francis simply took a shovel and carried them into the forest, but he buried this rooster. We had other roosters after that, but none were like Little Coxer. Leslie thought she would give anything to have those times back, but she knew Francis too well. He has gone too far. He and Harriet sat down at the kitchen table with cups of coffee. Leslie asked, "What can you tell me?" Harriet began, "Well, he is not dating anyone. At least, I have not heard. He moved, but you know that. He used some money and made a down payment on a bungalow near Red House. This is the old home of the Hamilton family." Leslie had to ask, "What about Victoria?" "That is one of the reasons why Francis moved. Broom came all the time and helped, you know." "Well, Victoria told me that they had a big argument. Apparently, Veronica was starting to lose patience. Victoria said she said something about you. Francis did not want to listen to it. He kicked her out. In fact, other people are said to have said things about you. I know Alvin Stevenson walked around with a mark under his eye for a couple of days. Someone said he blurted out something about you and your pants. Or, more accurately, what is in them." Leslie sat calmly, but her thoughts were racing. Maybe all was not lost. However, Harriet quickly dispelled these hopes. "Do not hope, my friend. Several people have asked him about you and your future. He is pretty firm on this issue. He always says that you and he are history." Leslie had to ask, "Do you believe this?" Harriet looked straight into her friend's eyes. "This is his pride, Leslie. Someone must have told him what you did. I know he loves you. He loves you madly, but I do not know. I just do not know anything else. He is working. That is all he does now. Works. Sometimes he sees Richard. He eats at his parents' house when he can, so he sees Victoria every couple of days." Harriet paused. "This is another problem, Victoria. She is not doing well. Her grades dropped. She skips classes. I spoke to your mother-in-law. She is very angry with you because of this. She says Victoria needs you. She seems to think it all stems from the accident. She thinks Victoria believes you are blaming yourself, that you are ashamed, and because of this, well, this other mess, you are embarrassed to see her. You have been away too long, Leslie. It is time to go back. Not for Francis, but for Victoria and Richard too." Leslie thought about this and then replied, "Mama, Campbell and I talked often. She did not mention Victoria much. She just said she missed me. Every time we talked, my mother invited me to visit. I was afraid. No, I was ashamed." Harriet stood up and poured the rest of her coffee into the sink. "So what are you going to do now?" Leslie involuntarily straightened her shoulders. "I am back, aren't I? I came back to get my family back. I think I will sort things out with Victoria first. I need her just as much as she needs me. Then, I will take care of Francis." She was lying to herself, and she knew it, but she did not see any other options. This was her world. She needed to try. Harriet sighed, looked at the ceiling, and then back at her friend. "Do not get your hopes up too high." Leslie stood up and put her cup in the sink. "Harriet, what else is left? He is my man. Okay, I ruined everything. I know I ruined it, but he is the one I want. He is everything I want. I have my whole life ahead of me. Think about it, Harriet. I am a woman. Just a woman." She squeezed her chin between her thumb and forefinger. She remembered Kipling's lines and said, "She who, for the sake of every baby under her breast, meets death with courage, cannot indulge in doubts or pity, cannot evade facts or jokes. This is purely male entertainment. This is not my honor. I am a woman, Harriet. I cannot and will not care about honor and pride. These are men's affairs. I am a wolf. I am a mother grizzly." Harriet laughed. "Do not start dragging me into your university thoughts, Leslie." Leslie shuddered nervously, then laughed, but it was a laugh without joy. "I am a woman. Hear me roar. Francis is mine. He belongs to me. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But now I am back. I am back for good. He is mine. I have to prove to him that I am his. Completely his and only his. Nothing else matters. I cannot and will not back down as long as there is life in this body. She hit her chest. I can fight. I can win. Taking a deep breath, she added, I will win. Is it true? I will do it, Harriet. I actually feel a little sorry for Francis. He does not know what awaits him. Then Leslie smiled. No, she beamed. Look, Harriet, I have this. She lifted her chest. This. She squeezed her hips. But most of all, I have this. With these words, she tapped her temple. Per Francis. Harriet, you will see. I will bring him home like a deer on the hood of my car. Harriet smiled widely. I am with you, Leslie. Just tell me. I will help as much as I can. Together, holding hands, they went upstairs. Harriet prepared Leslie's bed for one night. In the morning, Leslie would have to move on. She needed to check the apartment, find her old clothes. She had a job. It might have been part-time, but she was no fool. If she needed a better job and more money, she would have to look for it. The bed was ready. Leslie undressed. Harriet pulled her friend by the hand to sit next to her. I do not know about the grizzly mother, Leslie, but I know a thing or two about she-wolves. From what I have read, a she-wolf only has one alpha. She does not spread her paws in front of anyone else but him. She squeezed her friend's hands. Leslie, you broke the main rule. And let us be honest, honey, Francis is a real alpha to the core. Leslie felt even worse than before. You do not think I have a chance, do you? I think there is always a chance. I am just warning you not to get your hopes up too much. I have known Francis all my life. Of course, people cheat, men cheat, women cheat, but it was never in his nature. Come on, friend, I know the whole story. Partly from you, the rest from Victoria. Harriet squeezed Leslie's hands tighter. You really did it. I mean, I really did. I am with you. I will be with you until the end. But do not count on my husband. He is really angry. He is also an alpha. He does not understand you. And, to be honest, Leslie, me neither. How could you do this? Leslie's eyes began to fill with tears. She wiped them away with the back of her right hand. I cannot explain it. I do not know. It just happened. To be continued. Subscribe to the channel and click on the bell so you do not miss the next part of this story. It will be here very soon. The link to the sequel will be in the description of this video below. Subscribe to our channel so that your love does not cheat on you. And go ahead and listen to the next story because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, please do not watch the next story.